Good evening. Good evening. Doing some training here. Come in. I missed the live training on Friday, so I figured I'll come in and do a YouTube live for you guys. Uh, Answer any questions before we start the new week. So let's see here. Get some lighting in here. Okay. So how's everyone doing? Any questions? Questions? Make sure that we have um, the links posted here, uh, and make sure any questions you may have. Come on in. Good evening, Mr. Randolph Woodson. Live free training Q&A. If you have any questions about freight brokering, go ahead and ask them. I have a little bit of time to spare to come in and answer some questions for you. If you haven't, hit the thumbs up on the on your screen there, your YouTube. Okay, hit your thumbs up, like this live video, so others can see it. Thank you very much. That one person that hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Questions. So I'm here to answer some questions. Freight broker questions, general freight broker questions you may have, beginner level questions you may have. That's my phone. So I'm kind of multitasking. I didn't have class Friday because I was dealing with some commercial leasing stuff, so I had to do that. So okay, right. Type your questions in the chat if you have any. I can give you guys at least a half an hour. We may go towards an hour depending on the level of questions that are asked and you know how much detail I go in answering them. Okay. What are your questions? Anything about basic freight brokering? What's the market like? Um, Getting customers? What are some of the resources? What do you say? How do you apply for your authority? Anything of that nature that you feel that you want to want to ask, right? So I'm here. Um, if it gets to a point where we get to like the 10-minute mark and there are no questions, I'll go ahead and shut this live down. I don't want to waste you guys' time, nor do I want to waste mine, right? But I'm just jumping in now for the YouTube subscribers. Um, we are having a 25. There's 2 days left for the 25% off sale. Um, we had a wonderful um, load board mastery seminar this past Thursday, where we went into grave detail about navigating the load board from a dispatcher, particularly standpoint, but also from a freight broker standpoint. Because as a broker, you will also want to be able to post your information on the load boards. Um, if none has anything, are you open to looking up some step deck loads out of Richmond? Richmond, Indiana, Richmond, Virginia. Which Richmond city and state are you referring to? Getting my truck on the road in February, then the brokers thereafter. So Richmond, Indiana, Richmond, Virginia. Okay, sorry, Virginia. So you're up in Richmond. You're not far from me. You're about an hour and a half north of where I live. So um I have a buddy who has a step deck down here in the Norfolk area. We may want to connect and I can have you speak to him. So you're getting open up to getting some step deck loads out of Richmond. Out of Richmond going where? Right? That's the question you need. What part of the country do you want to source your loads going out of Richmond? What lanes do you want to run? Do you want to go to the southeast? You want to go to the northeast? You want to go to the Midwest with your step deck? Um, and how long do you want to be out? How far do you want to go? What reloads are you looking for, or backhauls you're looking for? So you would send me an email or text, um, Mr. Woodson, and we can kind of discuss that. And I can connect you with my buddy out of Chesapeake, Virginia, who is a uh, carrier, and broker. So um, sometimes it's not what you know, it is who you know, right? So that can be able to make the connection. Okay. So um, any other any other questions? We've been in here 5 minutes, so don't want to. My phone has just been. This is an all day thing, guys. So I apologize, but if you're not answering questions, I'm going to multitask. Okay, got it. 804. I got you, Mister Woodson. Um, so, and I'll connect you. I'll probably try to three-way um, with my buddy in Chesapeake. Yeah, Melvin. So, okay. So, Freight Broker 101 training for beginners. Um, 25% off for the month of January, which is 2 days left. We may have another sale in February, Valentine's Day, and my mother who's passed, her birthday was the 15th of February. So I want to maybe do a sale to commemorate that to kind of give you guys a way to come into the trainings. Um, Low board mastery. We had it last Thursday. We're trying to have it once a month. We go into great detail, very specific details about from a dispatching standpoint as well as a freight broker standpoint of how to navigate the low boards. Hey, LaDonna, uh, how to navigate the low boards very thorough. We focus mainly on the dispatcher side, but we do have use cases where freight brokers can understand of how to post their loads. Because as a freight broker, when you source your freight or your shipments from a shipper, you're going to need carriers to move that freight, move those shipments. If you have a network of carriers that you already have onboarded to your brokerage, or if you refer to the load board or the load boards to post your loads at decent rates so that carriers will see those loads and become interested in calling you in an effort to book those loads. Okay. Or you may reach out as also as brokers. Another technique is to reach out to local trucking companies that are close to the shippers' shipping facilities, their locations. That's a strategy, right? You want to start there. You want to reach out to local carriers there. You want to onboard carriers who may or may not live in the area. And you also want to post loads on those load boards, those various load boards, where you post some details of the load. You give as much information as possible um, about the load, the shipment, to see and entice those carriers to contact you in an effort to reach out to them to try to get those shipments moved by those carriers. And of course, you want to vet those carriers, approve them according to your processes and requirements for your brokerage. Um, uh, if you get a new shipper, new shippers, and new shipments from those shippers, you want to put your more experienced carriers on those loads. You don't want to put first time onboarded carriers on this new account, if you will. So, uh, Afnan Chaudhry said, "Hey, just wanted to know as I'm working in a carrier company, should I go for a freight brokerage? If there is no non-compete, non-disclosed thing, or if there's no conflict of interest, then sure. And I am from Canada. Okay, so you work in a truck in a carrier company. What is your role in the carrier company? That's the question. Are you dispatching for them? What is your role in that carrier company? And if that carrier company has a broker division, that may be a conflict of interest. But what is your role, Afnan, in the carrier company so that we can decide if it's a good idea or not for you to um, go into the brokers. Otherwise, you would have, if you are strongly considering working as a freight broker, as an independent freight broker, your own company, then you would have to decide if you need to leave that carrier company and just go out on your own and get your own business as a freight brokerage. Apply for your broker license or broker authority, okay, and then go through all the other required steps in order for that authority or that license to become active, and then go after shippers, things of that nature. So we have to, if you can type what your role is, Afnan Chaudhry, in the carrier company that you currently work for now, we can kind of give you a little bit of advice on which way to go. So I'll be waiting for that while we continue talking about just general stuff in the freight brokerage. Um, Being a freight broker, you're in the industry, transportation industry, where you are the logistics provider. You are arranging for the transportation and the movement of freight or shipments or cargo or commodities. So, okay, that's what you do as a freight broker. How do you do that varies on your skill set and how well you are at selling your services and yourself. First step being you want to procure um, freight from the customers. You want to get the freight. You want to get into an agreement or a contract, if you will, with the customers or the shippers, which are your first customer. As a freight broker, you have two customers. You have the shippers, the ones who need their shipments transported to their customers, the receivers. That's your first customer. Your second customers are the approved, authorized motor carriers with whom you are going to vet and onboard to your freight brokerage to move the shipments and the cargo and the commodities for your first customer. And your first customer controls that financial relationship in the sense that they are going to give you a load tender of the amount that they're willing to pay and you agree upon to move this shipment. And in that those monies, you are going to take a certain percentage out and pay the majority of it to the second customer, which are your approved carriers, in order to make your margin. So, say for example, a shipper has a load tender that you accepted of $5,000 to move a shipment from their shipping facility, let's say in Charlotte, North Carolina, to let's say Houston, Texas, or somewhere that can equal a decent distance for an amount of $5,000. Let's say it's something like 1,500 miles or whatever, right? So let's say um, somewhere in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania to Houston, Texas. That's a decent distance, about 1,500 miles or so for a dry van, right? A dry van equipment type, and they give you a load tender that you agree to. In other words, once you find an approved motor carrier that you onboard to your freight brokerage to move this shipment and agree to it according to the contract you have with the carrier, you already have the contract and the load tender with the shipper. $5,000. That's what you're going to invoice the shipper for once that shipment is delivered and verified at the receiver, and you invoice the shipper. They're going to give you $5,000, and let's say you pay the motor carrier, the approved carrier that you onboarded to your freight brokerage to move that shipment for your first customer. This is your second customer for your first customer at, I don't know, 4,500. Let's say you paid the carrier 4,500, right? So the shipper pay is 5,000. Your target rate for the carrier is 4,500. You may have a max payment at 4,700. That means you have wiggle room to negotiate an extra 200 up, but that's the maximum you'll give up because you don't want to tear too much into your profit margin, right? So, but let's say the shipper pays 5,000, your target is 4,500, and you get a carrier who agrees to 4,500. So the difference in those numbers is what you, the broker, brings home, or what you make, or what's your margin, or your percentage, if you will. Okay, that's the concept of freight brokering. Okay, you get a and the it's all controlled. The monies is controlled through the customer, the first customer, the shipper, because you're just getting the carrier a portion of that money. You're brokering that process. You're in the middle of that. Shippers can easily get carriers if they wanted to do so, and some shippers work directly with carriers or with trucking companies. But for those shippers who don't, and for whatever reason, and primarily it's probably because they don't have the time, they're doing major shipments and managing their facilities, so they hire or agree to contract with, if you will, you guys, the freight brokers, right? And you have a broker shipper agreement, and all the terms and concepts apply there, right? All the any extra instructions, accessorials, whatever you guys agree to accept the tender, $5,000. Now you are responsible for sourcing a carrier, a truck driver, to to move this particular shipment at 4,500 or whatever you and that carrier, that owner operator, that truck driver agrees to. So that is the concept of freight broker. Now, there's a lot of other intermovable parts that's in the process, your back office infrastructure, your office, how you manage the payouts, how you invoice the shipper once the carrier, the truck driver who delivered that shipment or that freight or the commodity or the load or the cargo to the receiving facility, which is the customer's customer, right? And they take possession of the shipment or the commodity or the load or the cargo, and they sign off on the BOL on the back end, which makes it now a POD, proof of delivery, right? So now that is a piece of paperwork in addition to other pieces of paperwork that the carrier either gives to you directly or through their brokering company who's going to work with you directly in order to invoice the final customer, which is the shipper, to get that $5,000, and then 45 of which, in this example, is paid to the carrier, and you keep the change, which is 500. Good evening, Yaraya. Says, good evening. If I put in a bid with BNSF Logistics and win that bid, I'm not understanding that part of the question. Can I broker that load, or would that be double brokering? So, what the question becomes: why are you doing it that way? You're bidding. What number one? What is BNSF? Are they a freight brokerage? Are they a trucking company? And then two, what is your role? Are you a broker? Are you a dispatcher? Are you a trucking company? Right. So if BNSF Logistics is a shipper and you're bidding on freight for that shipper, and then you're trying to move their freight using a carrier, then you have to have a broker authority to do so. Okay. So that's the legal way of doing it, right? So there's some variables that's left out in your question there, Araya. Who is BNSF Logistics? What is their title? What is their role? Are they a shipper? Are they a broker? Okay, so I'm a motor carrier. So you are a trucking company or a motor carrier. So what is the role of BNSF Logistics? Who are they? Are they also a motor carrier? Are they a freight broker? Okay, so I understand who you are now. So I just got my broker license. So you are a motor carrier and you have your broker license. So my question now becomes, so this is a little bit more interesting. You're putting in a bid with a company who is what? BNSF is what? What are they? I could look them up easily, BNSF Logistics, and see their title, but I wanted to see if you can simply tell me who they are. And you said you were in Canada, right? Who said they were in Canada? Okay. So BNSF is third party. Where is BNSF Logistics based out of? Because I see three results. I see one out of Canada, I see one in Texas, and one in Arkansas. BNSF Logistics LLC in Arkansas. I see one in Texas. So the one in Texas and the one in Canada, those two are not authorized. The third one that I'm looking at in uh, Arkansas is a freight forwarder slash freight broker. Okay. So they have an FF and an MC authority. So which one? Right. So you're in New Orleans. Okay. So I get where you are. What I'm asking is who is BNSF Logistics and where are they located? Who is the company that you're trying to bid for? That's what we need to know so we can answer your question very specifically. Okay, so you're in New Orleans, you are a motor carrier, and you just got your broker license. So I understand who you are, but your question said, good evening. If I put in a bid with BNSF and win that bid, then you're asking, what can you do? So, who is BNSF? What is their role? Usually, when you put in bids with someone, it's usually saying that they are a shipper. The three uh, companies that I listed under BNSF Logistics, two were brokers who were not authorized. One was a broker slash freight forwarder. So, in all of those cases, I don't think it's possible for you to work with them as far as putting in a bid with them. But I need to know who, where, who is BNSF Logistics. So we need to know what is that? Where are they located and what is their role? Are they a broker? Are they a motor carrier? Are they a shipper? So we can answer your question for you. Okay. In the meantime, while you're figuring that part out, I'll entertain some other questions here. Okay, just to make sure that I get any other questions out the way. Okay, but if you are acting in the role of a motor carrier, you can bid on them. Question: I'm a new dispatcher, not a broker. What should I require from owner operators to onboard them? So this, even though you're a so this channel here, this is a freight broker channel. Okay, so we're answering questions, and this is He Who Knocks. This is a freight broker channel, He Who Knocks, but I can answer your dispatcher question. So it says, I'm a new dispatcher, not a broker. What should I require from owner operators to onboard them? So you need a contract between them, a dispatcher agreement. You need a carrier profile to see what their requirements are, and you may need some type of limited power of attorney so that they give you permission to represent them when you are onboarding them with brokers to book the loads for. Okay, and if they have a factoring company, you would need the credit application of the factoring company so that you can do the credit check or send it to the factoring company to have them. I'm sorry, send it to the broker to have them fill it out so that the factoring company can run a credit check on them and verify that they are factorable. Okay, so but this is a freight broker channel. Even though that was a dispatching, we do have a dispatcher one-on-one training for beginners YouTube channel. You may want to consider subscribing to that so that you can ask those types of questions. We can go into a little bit more detail of those questions on that channel. Okay, but that's what you would require from them. You also would require from them um, copies of their MC authority, a copy of their certificate of insurance, and their W-9. Do they need an MC, clean driving history, etc.? Well, yes. Yeah, if you're going to be working with a owner operator and you're booking loads for them with a freight broker, it would make sense for them to have an MC and DOT, an operating authority, because you won't be able to book loads with brokers because brokers are going to check and ask for the MC number so that they can look in their system to see if that carrier has the authority to transport the freight that they're trying to sell or trying to give to them. So Okay, that's how that works. In addition to other things, right? Clean driving history is always good. Safety scores is always good, whether driver safety or vehicle. Uh, W-9, MC authority, and certificate of insurance. Every motor carrier who has an authority to transport freight, every motor carrier who has an authority to transport the freight has to have the insurance to cover what they are transporting. Make sense? And the two on the policy, on the insurance policy, the two of the most common policy types are liability and cargo, general liability and general cargo. Liability minimum between 750,000 and a million. Cargo minimum of 100,000. Okay, so all of this we pretty much discuss on the dispatcher one-on-one training for beginners YouTube channel. Again, this is the Freight Broker one-on-one training for beginners YouTube channel. So, okay. All right, we're getting down to 30 minutes now. I said I was going to do 30 minutes. First I said I was going to do 10 and no questions were asked. So yeah, LaDonna posted for you, he who knocks, she posted the YouTube dispatcher one-on-one training for beginners channel. So if I were you, I would subscribe to that. Allstate Caribbean Express, why are brokers always trying to underpay straight box truck owners? I'm not sure. That's a good question. I haven't not only box truck owners, but they're sometimes, some of them, not all brokers, but some try to underpay the semis. So yeah. Yeah, you asked the question. So yes. Yeah. Yeah, I answered the question for you, he who knocks. So that's fine. I'm not gonna not answer the question. You asked the question, so I answered. So that's cool. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe to that channel so that you can be plugged in to the dispatcher side and you get all the questions answered that you possibly can handle. Okay. Why are brokers always trying to underpay straight box truck owners? Because some straight box truck owners um, may not know how to negotiate correctly with the brokers, and the brokers sense that and they take advantage of it. Maybe the box truck owners don't understand their market or where they're located or understand the urgency of the movement of the freight so that they can have leverage to negotiate with the broker. Okay. So these are some things that the box truck owners may consider. CDL or non-CDL, 10,000 pound non-CDL or up to 13 to 15,000 pounds CDL. So, okay. All right, guys. So we wanted to ask, do a Q&A, a live Q&A free training here as far as the basics of being a freight broker. You ask some questions, we answer them. Um, questions like getting started with the freight broker, what are the requirements, sourcing the shippers, who are the customers of a freight broker, the shippers and the approved carriers, your back office infrastructure, what do you need, like load boards and transportation management systems, which are TMSs, maybe some um, accounting software like QuickBooks. If you have staff, maybe some payroll, um, and then different techniques and strategies of sourcing the customers, shippers, and different techniques and strategies for sourcing the carriers to transport the freight of your first customers. Okay, so with that being said, hopefully we've touched on some things for you. If you or someone you know is interested in learning about the freight broker industry in the transportation industry and logistics itself, we'll put the links will be in the description of this live video. They're already there. We're just waiting to process. And right now we're having a 25% off for our single member as well as two people enrollment until the end of the month, which is 2 days from now, January 31st. Next month, we may have another sale, maybe anywhere between 15 to 50%, depending on what we decide to kind of motivate you to come into an industry to take advantage of. The industry, even though the market is down a little bit, and it actually fluctuates. So, up and down, it has its peaks and valleys, if you will. Um, it's not going anywhere, even though the market does those things. It's not going anywhere. Transportation industry as dispatcher, motor carrier, freight broker, freight forwarder, warehousing and distribution, inventory management, customs brokering, importing, exporting, the ports, drayage, intermodal, these different things, container storage. I mean, it's all over, right? So you just have to find your entry point that you think that you will be able to thrive on, and then decide to come in wherever you decide to come in at. We'll be here to provide some training for you if you decide to come into the areas that we are kind of versed in and to help you along your path. Okay. Until then, I salute you guys. Thank you for those who are in this live right now, who are hearing this, and for those who will be listening to it on the channel later on once we put it in the channel. Okay. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a successful and wonderful and productive week coming.